Hello everybody, it's TannerFishies here, back again with a new Ninjago video here on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a potential idea that Ninjago could totally utilize in the future, and this idea might actually reinvent the series in a way, in terms of, switching things up, or just spicing up the traditional formula a little more. Now, in terms of this idea, what I am proposing is a complete and total season centered entirely on the villains. Now, of course, this is going to be totally inspired by properties like the new Suicide Squad film, or even the My Villain Academia section of My Hero Academia's storyline, but I feel as though this could totally work for Ninjago, and I feel like a lot of us would like to see more stories focused on villains as opposed to getting the same 6 ninja over and over again. Ninjago's villain lineup is very rich and very full of highly entertaining and well-written characters that could totally carry an entire season, much like our core 6 ninja. And like I said, having a season focused entirely on the villains would be a nice way of spicing things up, as opposed to a storyline following the same 6 ninja over and over again. Ninjago's gone on long enough where I feel as though we could actually branch out and experiment with something like this if the series really wanted to. In terms of why I think a villain season could totally work for Ninjago, you would get more development for key characters aside from the ninja and their traditional allies. It would give the villains a chance to shine while also promoting some other characters that may not have had much of a spotlight in previous seasons. Smaller background villains could even come to the forefront and get some type of backstory detailing their own personal feelings and why they do what they do. It would no longer be the same old Ninjago. Of course, we've seen something like this before. We've seen villain-focused episodes before, especially in season 11 onwards. In a way, what I'm thinking for a villain season would be very similar to Day of the Departed, but better, dare I say, with a stronger focus on the villains and having the ninja not being involved in the story at all. I feel like an entire villain-focused season could very well work. But which villains do I think would be a good main cast? What Ninjago bad guys would I like to see in the forefront of this new villain season if Ninjago is to do something like this? Well, for one, I do not want to repeat villains that we saw in Day of the Departed. I feel like those key villains have already had their chances to shine previously in Ninjago stories, and we basically understand who those characters are. I am specifically referring to new bad guys and new villains coming from the newer Ninjago seasons. So in terms of my main cast for this Dream Ninjago villain season, I feel like I want to keep the team relatively small, similar in numbers to that of the ninja team, so probably 6 members at the most. For a leader, I would love to see a return of King Vangelis, otherwise known as the Skull Sorcerer. I feel like King Vangelis being imprisoned at the end of season 13 left the door open for his inevitable return. It's not like he died or anything like that, he was simply imprisoned in Shintaro from what we can imagine, so I feel as though his return would be pretty expected. In terms of his powers though, I feel as though his powers would have to be changed up a little bit because the Skull of Hazadur was destroyed. I would love to see Vangelis drop the Sorcerer title from his name and instead provide more of an emphasis on practical and tactical uses of fighting as opposed to magical varieties. For example, perhaps he could be more in tune with hand-to-hand combat as opposed to relying purely on his magical abilities. And I feel as though he would make a good center and a good leader for the entirety of this villain team. Next up, I feel as though Esphira would be a great second in command and a very interesting member to add on to this villain team. For one, she could provide an interesting back and forth dynamic with Vangelis. I feel like both of them being leaders to an extent would be at each other's throats for a lot of this season and would essentially have a bitter but friendly rivalry, if that makes sense. And also maybe she can get one of the scrolls of Forbidden Spinjitzu back, that way she could be at her full power. Or at least have some type of edge over the rest of the team. Of course, we know that she is skilled in hand-to-hand combat like several members on this list, but I feel as though Esphira could definitely shine harder if she had more of her abilities intact, if that makes sense. It would give her more of a chance to stand out as opposed to her less than stellar appearance during season 11's Fire chapter. Next up, I want to add the mechanic to my team, as the sort of tech guy and the resources person. The mechanic would indeed return from other roles from previous seasons. He's kind of been one of those characters that's been showing up a lot lately in the background, and I feel as though he would make a great addition to this team, being, once again, the team's resource guy and the tech expert or mechanic of the group. Next up, I want to add Ultraviolet as the wild card. She could fit a large variety of roles, and considering how Ultraviolet herself has been making several appearances in the background background of several seasons as of late, I feel like having her on the team is essentially a no-brainer. She could fit a large variety of roles and cover a lot of ground doing what she does best, which is basically being insane. Next up, we have Kilo as the Muscle. Similar to Ultraviolet, Kilo is also coming from the Sons of Garmadon. That would make for an interesting team dynamic, both of these characters going from one team to another. I feel as though with a team such as this, you need to have some type of muscle and strong character, and for that, I would obviously select Kilo. And lastly, for my sixth and final member, I would love to see Fugitive be a part of this villain lineup. For one, he could provide some comic relief, and he could potentially be an unexpected trump card, maybe hiding some new abilities away that he's saving for the perfect time. I could see Fugitive being that sixth member that you think shouldn't be a part of the team, but he quickly proves his place and proves that he does indeed deserve to be there. So that's basically my overall team that I would like to see for a villain-focused season if Ninjago were to do that in the near future. In terms of what the storyline would be, well, essentially the villains would probably be teaming up with each other, obviously, to fight against the ninja, or at least prepare some type of strategy to take down the ninja team. Obviously, the ninja themselves as a team would not be in the season. Rather, the season would focus purely on the villains, but their reason for assembling is to take on the ninja, or at least that's what they think. Any good storyline needs an antagonist for the protagonists themselves to rise up against, and because the protagonists of this story are going to be the villains, theoretically, they would need to fight somebody, and in this case, I have an idea for another Ninjago antagonist to be the pure antagonist to this team of bad guys, and that character is none other than Lord Garmadon himself. Now, the reason why I chose Garmadon is for a couple of reasons. For one, Garmadon being the main bad guy, or at least the main antagonist of this season, would be fun to see, considering how several members of this team have history with Garmadon. The show could very well experiment with these matchups in this theoretical season, because once again, the history is there and has been established in previous seasons. Imagine Ultraviolet and Kilo, two people that once worshipped Garmadon, fighting him. I think that could make for a very exciting battle. Even characters like Asphira have history with Garmadon's family, making these dynamics potentially really fun to see. Now, what would Garmadon be doing? Well, naturally, Garmadon would be trying to stop them. Because my main plotline of this theoretical season is to have the villains teaming up to fight the ninja, Garmadon could very much intervene and try to break their group apart. Of course, we have not seen Lord Garmadon since March of the Oni, so I feel like bringing him back and having him fight for the side of good would be a nice way to return to his character. It would be interesting to explore how Garmadon's good side is slowly returning to him, and I feel like Garmadon being the main antagonist, if you will, of this season is a genuinely good idea. I think that would genuinely work out. And obviously Garmadon would walk away victorious, but the ninja would have no idea that this battle had even taken place, which is also something that I want to keep very much in line. And obviously, being a new Ninjago season, if this were to happen in the future, I would expect a new line of sets to go along with this. Basically, this season would have the completely normal treatment, except there will not be any ninja involved. This would be a very, very interesting season to say the least. And would it be risky? Obviously. I feel as though the Ninjago story on its own has been very much focused on adapting the ninja storylines, obviously, but I feel like they could switch things up a little bit and provide a storyline exclusively for the villains. And while it would be risky, it would definitely switch up the formula a little bit and give Ninjago fans something new to experience. Additionally, if the Ninjago staff does not want to do a villain-focused season, then maybe they could just do a simple legacy line dedicated entirely to villainous vehicles and bad guy temples or whatever. Ninjago Legacy desperately needs more villain representation. A lot of the sets have just a pure lack of bad guy representation, and I feel like providing more villain sets into the Ninjago Legacy line would once again be a fun way to step away from the norm for a while, to experience something new entirely. So instead of having an entire season, and in turn several Ninjago sets based entirely on the villains, why not just make more legacy villain vehicles, or legacy villain sets in general? I feel like that could totally work out too. In general, I feel like this is a very good idea. Having a Ninjago season focused entirely on the bad guys does kind of seem like a risk on the surface level, which it totally is, don't get me wrong, but I feel as though there is a lot of potential here to make something like this happen and make it really good and memorable. The Ninjago line giving us something different like this would be quite fun, and I personally would not complain if something like this does happen in the future. I feel like this could totally work out, but let me know down below in the comments what you think about this. What do you think about this idea for a completely villain-focused Ninjago story? Leave our thoughts down below in the comments, and let me know what you think of my proposal overall. Do you like the idea for for the story? Do you like the idea for the team? And what do you think about Garmadon being the potential antagonist? With that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and check out the links down below in the description for other forms of social media. As always, big shout out goes out to my Patreon supporters, including once again the marvelous Jan. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video once again. My name is TannerFishies, and with that I bid you farewell.